Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. Today, I'm telling you, we got a riveting story from Bob Hylands. Bob is a veterinarian. He's a faithful member of NBUC here, and he has a story that is going to blow us away. I love how open he is, how faithful he is, how he is able to articulate the work of God in his life in a way that can't help but, I know it opened me up in a really beautiful way. So I hope that'll happen for you today. I think you're gonna really enjoy this one. Get ready, friends. Fasten your seatbelt. Let's dive in. Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. And as I said in the introduction, I am super excited about this conversation with my good friend, Bob Hylands. Bob, as I said, is one who is of great faith, and I just get to see that firsthand. You're going to get a glimpse of that today around a really important topic that probably most of us don't talk very much about. And why don't we start there, Bob, just to say a little bit about even how you have an openness for miracles in your life, because I think sometimes people can be quite skeptical about these things, and I just see a different mindset with you, a different heart set. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the really important things about miracles, and when you've experienced them on different forms, and I'll like to bring up that there's, I think, different kinds of miracles, but the most important thing for those who have experienced them, because I know you're out there, I'm not alone in this, is to never deny it. To acknowledge that it happened, to acknowledge what the power was behind it, and to always be open to look for more opportunities to experience that heavenly touch that you get at times.
Mm-hmm. And just while we're talking about that, how would you suggest someone does that? How does one go about just even being a little more open to some of this kind of thing?
Well, let me take a step back with that one, Jamie.
Yeah.
I think that there's two types of miracles out there. There's the day-by-day miracles that we take for granted. That looking back, is that a miracle or is that just the way things are? And what do we define a miracle as? It's something I think you brought in some of the services. It's something that we knew we couldn't do on our own. There had to be another power involved in this. Whether it be mankind or just you as an individual person. Could I have done that particular thing just on my own? Or was there something else there? And then starting to acknowledge there's a possibility that there was something else there gets it really, really, makes it very real. The other type of miracle is the one that miracles, because I've had more than one, believe it or not, is the one that's life-changing, that is directed towards you, and that you experience intensely, and they're life-changing moments. Right? They're incredibly spectacular events that you cannot deny what just happened.
Right? Like almost a before and after, as far as even the defining of your life, those bigger ones.
It certainly anchors it. I'll throw it at that. Yeah. They're all anchors. But if we look at, to answer your question, how do we start opening ourselves to miracles? We take so much out there for granted, and so many times we try and take God out of the equation. I'm just going to ask you to leave him in the equation as a possibility. Okay, won't ask anything more. But when we start looking at everything that's around us, we have, as people, we're starting to figure out how things work. But there's a difference between how it works and who made it to work. There's a real difference there. And for those who don't know, my career path was being a veterinarian, so I really know the body well. We get to study sciences. We get to see the delicate nature of how the body was put together. We still don't understand how it heals itself. Okay, we pretend to, but we really, if you ask down clearly, they don't know. But people say, well, you're a scientist. How can you believe in God? Well, it's because I am a scientist that I believe in God. Because I see the language that God uses. There's a beautiful song, So Will I, 100 billion times. And there's a line in there, the stars, even the stars, obey you. There's laws in nature. We look at the laws that were given to Moses, and we take that for granted. But there's laws out there in physics. There's laws in chemistry. There's laws in biology. Mathematics is a precise subject that is there's a structure to it. These things, to me, reinforce. They don't discredit God. They reinforce that somebody had to put together. Why do we have laws? How did they happen? Somebody had to give them to us. So why do everything in our matter-wise in our known universe obeys to laws? Laws don't just appear; they have to be
where'd they come from?
Where'd they come from?
That's
so
awesome.
Let's keep that one as a possibility. And when you ask yourself, there's got to be a master design. They say that if you take 100 chimps, 1,000 chimpanzees, give them a paintbrush, give them a whole bunch of paints and a canvas, and in time, they'll paint a Rembrandt. They will.
Wow.
Could be 1 billion years, but there's one problem with that. If they get it wrong, the reality of things is they die. You don't get 1 billion years of trying. You have to have it right to begin with and build on it. So who did that? We could put notes of a musical song together. We know the notes, but you need a composer to make a song. So if we look at the world, we understand it. We understand a little bit. We're not stardust. Jamie, you're quarks and leptons.
Well, I'll have to do some research to figure out who I am then. But I have to regardless.
But we all are. Who directs that? So look at everything out there that we take for granted. The air that you breathe. The fact that Earth is placed at a perfect distance from the sun to keep it warm and allow life. I love Elon Musk. I think he's really exciting. But I don't want to live on Mars. Because if I have to leave everything that's a gift from God and go to a barren planet, I'm going to get homesick real fast. Look at all the gifts that we are. We ask God to prove himself to us every day because it's, we're individual beings. We think it's all about me. It's got to prove it to me again today. And I'm asking you to redirect it's not about us. I'm okay if God doesn't answer all my questions. Believe it or not, I'm okay because I know he's there because of the world around me and part of the miracles that I have experienced. But we need to change our focus a little bit.
No, I love the idea that you frame just our existence and the existence of this world. There's miraculous activity behind all of that. And just, that without having a big experience like you're going to share, everyone gets to experience that every day.
But the other one's pretty big too. It's there all the time. So my experiences are big to me. They may not mean something to you, but they're big to me. All right. I always ask myself the question: why do we really get into superheroes and adventure movies and incredible computer-generated images, but we won't give that credit to God? And I can tell you, God isn't CG. God's real. But so we constantly fight. What's the main question that's asked to you so often? How could there be a trinity? How can you be in 3 places at once? But with quantum physics, we prove that a particle be in 2 different places, connected, and it's totally normal. It's part of our world that we live in. Quantum physics allows for one to be in 2 places at the same time. Why not? We'll eventually get to 3.
That's great. That's great.
But it's there.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love it. Bob, you have had a really incredible experience that is in the miraculous activity in a big way. Love to hear a bit about that story, that experience. Yeah.
Well, if I could first say that a lot of people are not going to believe this story, and it's okay, because if I was hearing this for the first time, I might have the same question. All right, that's way too much. But I promise that everything I say happened exactly in the order that they happened. So if you allow me, I have to build a little bit upon it. As a veterinarian, before I became a veterinarian, I was taking a wildlife degree course, and I had the incredible opportunity to raise Timberwolves for the University of McGill. And I was known as a Disney boy. I'd drive in my car and I'd have 2 Timberwolves in my back seat. You look in your mirror of your rear view mirror and you got 4 eyes looking at you. Or I go cross-country skiing with 2 Timberwolves running beside me. It was an incredible life. But in breeding season, they can change temperament somewhat. We had one Timberwolf that was actually rescued because she was taken captive and was being raised in an apartment in New York City on the 9th floor of an apartment. The animal got seized. We acquired it at the University of McGill in Montreal. And so she was never afraid of humans, because from very early onset, she had been customized. So when breeding season comes, she can be pretty demanding. I'm supposed to drop my ears. I'm supposed to drop the hair on my back. If I had a long tail, pull it in, take a very submissive position, because she was top dog, if I could use that term. I couldn't. So she developed, during breeding season, some severe aggression towards me. One year, she attacked me while I was in the compound, which is about 2 to 3 acres in size, all gated. And I remember being on my back with her right up my throat and trying to hold her off of me. I did manage to get her off. And that was the end of my exposure to her, because the university said, you can't go in there anymore. For whatever reason, she doesn't get along with you during breeding season. And, I'm not going to survive a second attack like that. So here comes the story. 2 years later, some of my colleagues were in the compound working on some of the cubs. And we had a large gate to the compound that was on an axle, like wheels. So it would roll, easy to open. That was a night where the snowflakes were about, the nights where they're really thick and it muffles all sounds. So if you tried yelling for someone for help, nobody would hear you. Unknowingly to me, I did not notice that she pushed her way through the gate, and I turn around and she's in full attack mode on me. She makes contact, and we're not talking a little dog aggression here. We're talking, I'm going to kill you. All right. And the first contact I had, I put my arms in front of her to break her coming into me, and she grabbed my arms and started gnawing.
Oh my goodness.
I start moving with her so that I'm buying myself time. And I do have the marks that I said to you. So it's you're not in a good place.
Wow.
Okay. And this is where the miracle happened. At that moment, I honestly knew, this is it. This is how I'm going. All right. The next few minutes, when she gets through my arms, are not going to be pleasant. And
they're not going to be pleasant.
They're not going to be pleasant.
I'm dying just listening to this. I can't imagine what it would have been like to be in that experience.
And I'm a kid, eh?
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 27.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I hope that doesn't offend anyone. Everybody's a kid now. But here's what surprised me, and I'm not. I didn't, and this really shocked me. I didn't worry about myself. And I think things were happening too fast for that to happen. But where I directed my thoughts, which I figured were my last thoughts, I said, Mom and Dad, I'm so sorry. Tomorrow the media is going to be on your doorstep. The papers, the radio, the television networks. It'll be a sensational news. In Canada, boy mauled to death by Timberwolf. It's going to hit the front pages. And I thought of all the people when my parents would want to just grieve and be left alone, having to deal with all this. And I honestly said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're going to go through this. And just I remember the emotions like they were yesterday. And then it happened. She's right on me, tearing me. And I know if she breaks through this guard, she's on me.
And it's done.
It's done.
It's over.
I cannot survive that. And this incredible ball of energy formed that separated us. It was like an expanding ball. And sometimes I think there was light, but I don't believe so. It was just like a physical force that separated us. I pointed to Jamie that there's light about 10 feet behind him. That's as far, flying through the air, that Timberwolf went. She was airborne, landed in the snow. I was airborne and landed in a chain link fence, was about where the this is a good day sign is behind me. I was off my feet. I hit the fence. She hit the snow. We were separated. For a second, in all honesty, I said, what the heck just happened? She got up, shook off the snow, and came right back at me. I'll put that one on hold. I said, I'm climbing this fence.
I bet.
And it's a 10 to 12 foot fence with a 45-degree incline. And I started climbing up, and she got my legs and started on my legs, and I kicked her off. And she saw that I was going inside. So she went through the gate. Back into the compound. I was on top of the door, slid the door from the top closed, and I was safe. At that moment, my colleagues walk out and see something really big had happened, because let's just say there was discoloration in the snow from all the injuries. What happened? And I'm just standing there, and I'm saying to them, he loves me. It was just this incredible. I just had a divine intervention in my life that saved my life. And I often ask myself, did it happen because my last thoughts weren't about me, but they were about my parents. It was about my brothers, what they would go through. And to this day, I often think that that's why there was an intervention. But we see these CG movies where people fly and are pushed. Mine wasn't CG. I was thrown backwards. So, Jamie, I described that moment. You asked, how does it, one of the questions you may have wanted to ask was, how's that affected me? I felt the force that I would never have believed before that separated the Red Sea. When you think of the images with the water being parted, and I go, yeah, okay, like, any normal person would probably go, yeah, it's a great story and it adds, but it happened. And I felt it. And I got separated the same way the water separated both ways. I got separated by a Timberwolf, and I felt an incredible, beautiful force, caring force that could do that. Yeah. So now the Red Sea, parting of the Red Sea is no longer a myth with me. I experienced it. So, the Exodus was real. Probably the fire column was real too. All the things that we find hard to believe because we'd rather believe it on a CG movie than believe it in real life. I have no doubts. And I remember having a psychologist friend said, you're delusional. You're under great duress and stress during that attack. I don't know how that makes you fly, and he was an atheist. And I said, I really felt, I know It's not just felt. I know I had a divine intervention happen. And he says, you just made it up in your mind. I said, do you believe in God? He said, absolutely not. I said, I feel so sorry for you. But I feel so much like doubting Thomas, where Thomas got to put his finger in Jesus's wounds. And I know he never doubted again. And I got to feel the force of the Red Sea. And I wouldn't be standing here today talking to people. And I will never deny this story. I'll never deny that it happened the way it happened. I actually took Kathy, my wife, to the site where it happened. I said, this is exactly where she landed. This is exactly where I went. Wow. And so she knows, she has a picture in her mind where this all happened. When you start denying, when you've been touched that way, and if you take away the incredible gift that was given to you, I'm afraid you may not feel it again. So if you've experienced something that has touched you so deeply that you know is not man-made, had to come from another power, cherish that moment, that privilege, that incredible blessing that you've been given, share it with others, and be open to other experiences.
Oh, man. Bob, let's go back to when that happened.
Yep.
When you are against this chain link fence after just moments, seconds ago, split seconds ago, having really your life right before your very eyes. What did you feel in that moment? What was that experience like? Because it sounds like there was like a split second where, whoa. And then of course, okay, I got to run. I got to get out of here because this isn't over yet, but I'm not dead, basically.
Yep. Not yet.
And yeah. But even my guess is there was, it quickly went to the not yet and let's climb that fence. But it sounds like there was probably a moment of just, even though it might have been very, very quick, when you were against that fence and you realized something just happened that changed what I thought was going to happen here. What was that feeling like?
To be honest with you, Jamie, it was happening so fast.
Okay.
Everything, like when she got up and came back up to me, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, we're talking really tight. I remember the thought going, what was that?
Okay.
What just happened?
Got to come back to that.
And that's exactly how it happened. But when I was in a car being driven to the hospital in a back seat, trying to control the wounds, that's where it hit. And I just broke down in tears that he's real. He loves us. We often think of Jesus saying, I'm not of this world. And maybe we need to take him literally, that there is something beyond us that we don't understand. So in the car, there was an incredible, even though I'm hurting everywhere and everybody in the car, in the front of the car is panicking, can we get them to the hospital quick enough? Which hospital do we go to? I could hear their panic. And in me, there was this, it was like in a deep prayer. It was so calm. He loves me. Wow. Why did you save me? What do you got in store for me? Wow. But there was this beautiful, beautiful peace, even under all the circumstances.
In the coming days, and as you did reflect on that, and probably rewind that in your mind over and over and over again, what was that like? What came to you? What were some of your reflections? What were some of your feelings and your thoughts in the days to follow that when you kind of process what had just happened?
You know what? It's a great question, and I'm not sure if I have the exact answer to that because I want to honor it exactly how it happened. But I remember trying to remember every single detail so that I never modify the story, that I don't embellish it. I want to remember exactly what happened and trying to, that's where, what was going through my mind? Oh yeah, I was worried about my parents. And that's where, was there a connection? What happened to having sympathy and compassion for someone else in a time that should have been all about me? So there were those kind of questions going through. There was watching my mom in tears because the injuries were pretty extensive. I was all bandaged up. I could no longer go to school and take notes. So it delayed my admission into veterinary school by almost 2 years because it's great studying from someone else's notes, but we all take notes differently.
Sure,
What evokes a memory, and so there was watching a sadness in the house, and I did not. If I failed at something, I did not pass along to my parents that story, what happened, and it should have been the most incredible moment that I could have maybe strengthened my parents' faith that God exists. And I remember I was afraid at that time to say what actually happened. And in all fairness, I might have doubted it myself for a second because you get all those voices say it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You imagine, no, it did.
Yeah.
And I'm here. And so there was a lot of talk in my head at that time.
Yeah. Well, still trying to figure it out probably yourself a little bit too, eh? What happened?
No, I'm getting really comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I just feel so blessed. And then I could tell you stories. We could make this a really long podcast, but there's other opportunities. I've been touched by the grace of God, and all you could do is turn around and say, thank you. No, I know you're there. I'm sorry for yesterday doubting you for a second. I don't know why I get touched like this so often, but I just feel so lucky.
Bob, as you've shared this experience and this story with others, what kind of reaction do you get? I'm really, really curious about that.
The most common reaction is, okay. But I know they go home and they think about it because there's this real aversion to announce your faith publicly, and that's why for those of you who've experienced something, don't be afraid to share. I will share this story anytime, and many of the others. I know I plant a seed. You talked in the service last week. It's not our job to make sure what soil it grows in, but to plant the seed. There's another term. It's not my job to feed the 5,000. It's just my job to bring the fish. Okay, let God do the rest. So I will tell my story, but I could see those lights go on where they now doubt their perception of reality, what the media tells you the world's about, what the pursuit of happiness being with, how big your house is or how loud your car is or whatever it might be, that maybe it's worth revisiting this. And I see it and I leave it there. I let the seed grow.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. As we're going through this story and reflecting on this experience, I'm thinking, Bob, about people recognizing that you could have died for sure.
I was there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And some people do die in these kinds of experiences. And my guess is you've thought a bit about this as well. What about those who are saying, but I didn't get the miracle, or the person I love didn't work out for them. What would you say to them?
So the first thing I would want to answer that question, I hope my answer does not dishonor anyone or seem insensitive and uncaring. That's the last thing I want to do. But I do believe from this experience, and I could name two others easily right now, that there's something beautiful on the other side. And that this isn't all there is. All right. And I hate the word, yes, I could have died there. All right. I hate the word death. I really do find it so wrong a word to use. I changed that word to ascend. Okay. I almost ascended at that point. It wasn't obviously my time. There is, when we lose someone, and I have no way to know how my life will end, how my marriage, I did put in our marriage contract, I go first, okay? And Kathy says, where? I said, it's in the fine print. I don't want to be without her, okay? I don't know how my life will play out, but I do know that I will be okay on the other side. So when you do lose a loved one, and it seems so unfair to people, and there's not a family out there that doesn't go through one type of pain or not. And so I'm not belittling anyone, but we have to trust that there is a creator. They are going to that place. We all will make that transition. None of us are going to escape it. But isn't it good to know there's something there that's waiting for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, Bob, that even when we started, that miracles show up in many different ways. Healing comes in many different forms. And sometimes my experience has been when someone's situation maybe doesn't work out with what we wanted originally, which in this case would be those dogs not to kill you. Yeah. When sometimes the worst does happen, God still can show up in other ways and bring healing and almost miraculous activity in other ways. So we really just want to try to encourage people around looking for that as well. And also to know, because I think sometimes we think, Bob's a better person, and that's why this happened for him, but not for me, or I've done something wrong, or I'm being tested. And exactly, I just, I think we'd want to make it really clear. There's a randomness in the sense of, life is mysterious, faith is mysterious. It's hard, it's challenging, it's complicated. But I would just really want people, I know you would too, Bob, just to know God loves all of us, and sometimes miracles happen and the way we want them. Sometimes they don't happen that way, but it doesn't mean God still isn't doing something that could be really amazing.
There's nothing special about me. All right. I'm just a messenger. So I've been given an opportunity to reassure people that there's something there. There's nothing that anybody's done wrong. I maybe make association feeling compassion for my parents. I don't know if that's real. I don't know if that's the reason. Okay. It's just something I came up with, trying to think out what happened. We are all love. We are all equal. When my father passed away, I felt so guilty because I had to be at my brother-in-law's father's funeral that I promised him. I had to leave my father in Montreal to be at the funeral, knowing my dad was on his last steps. And as I walk into the funeral home, I get the call walking up the steps of the chapel that my dad's gone. And I remember saying to my family, we cannot let anyone know. This is the third time to grieve. We will grieve, as soon as we walk out of here, but this is the third time. But when I was sitting in the in the chapel, I got bumped, like physically moved, because my family left me alone because they knew I needed to be alone. And as clear as my dad could talk to me, he says, "Don't worry about me. I'm having a blast."
That's what you felt in that moment.
He nudged. I moved. I moved about that much.
That's great.
What the? There's nobody beside me. Don't worry about me. I'm having a blast. My dad liked to drink a bit, so I don't know if it's a really good Irish whiskey or something.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I just smiled. So your loved ones are cared for.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, Bob, that your thought in that moment was about your parents. And my experience has often been that people generally reach the end of their life in a similar way in which they lived their life. And I think there's a part of you, from my experiences, you're often thinking about others. That's the way we try to live when Jesus is at the center of our life. And just don't want to miss that this isn't just about a miraculous activity around a death or not. This is God's miraculous activity happens every day, and there's something like it can be miraculous even of moving beyond ourselves. That is a part of the way that you experienced this and lived in that moment. But I think probably at least have tried to live throughout your life, and it's really just really grateful for that, Bob. Grateful for you and grateful for God's work in your life.
The fact that I thought that surprises me.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that is one of the things that stood out, because I would have thought of different things.
Yeah.
And we often know as we lose an elderly parent, they're often only focused on family, stories of family.
Absolutely.
So take care of each other.
Yeah. No, I I go into hospital rooms as part of my role sometimes, and I'm amazed how that person is in such a very difficult place, and they can still be thinking of others, thinking about the nurses, thinking about the doctors, thinking about their family, thinking about me, asking me about my family. And part of me is like, well, I better answer the question. I want to honor the question, but part of like, how can you be even thinking? But somehow there's something really amazing and beautiful about that. Yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree.
It's what makes humans beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of God's grace in us, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, Bob, love you so much. Love the story. Love this conversation. Want to close off today with a little bit of good news podcast rapid fire. So, what's the best thing going on in your home these days?
We've over the pandemic, we set up a prayer room in our house. Lots of music in our house and lots of prayers. But a really neat thing in the last week is our son just bought his first detached home, and we moved him to Guelph last week, and that was quite a privilege to be able to experience that. I remember how I was at that age, and it was funny to see it. It's all the same worries.
That's great. That's great. Some things just come around.
Come around.
For sure. What's the best thing going on in your neighborhood, in your community these days?
Well, if you live in Brampton, we're about to get the cherry blossoms off Main Street, which is always a big attraction. And so we're about to blossom in that part. And I'm about to say, how do I add to that? Well, I think North Bramley is about to blossom too. And I would like to say that we had this week our first in-house prayer group. And I have to say it was beautiful being together with people, and it was extremely powerful. It was beautiful.
Totally
so
agree.
That was great.
Awesome. Okay, last one. What's the best thing going on in our world these days? There's a big one.
Well, okay. How much time we got?
You got a minute.
Okay, I'll try and do it in less. I think a great thing is that the outsourcing in the world, the supply chain is being rearranged. That it's not just one country, and that it will be spread out to more countries in the world. That means sharing the wealth, and I think that's a good thing. And one thing that excites me a lot is that we're looking at our energy situation and our climate and this beautiful planet that we've been given. We're within years now of having nuclear fusion as a permanent, non-polluting, renewable energy source for our homes, our businesses, our cars, whatever it be. We're close. We're less than 10 years now. They've got a lot of things figured. This is exciting. This is going to change the world, and it's going to equalize the world because the technology that's coming out of the U.S. is going to be shared equally with the world. That's cool.
That is very cool.
It is very cool.
And we talk about miraculous activity. There we go. Eh?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, God works through people.
Absolutely.
So the people working on this, when they get down, he says, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, Bob, thanks so much. Would just love to close this with a time of prayer of thanks for not only this conversation, but how it will hopefully bless and inspire and encourage others, and to be open for us just to be open to God's activity in the world in a way that might amaze us, might astound us.
It will astound you. Yeah. Give it a try.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Let's pray. Yeah. Oh God, my goodness, we give you thanks and praise for this incredible conversation and for Bob's openness to you in his life, for that moment where he was thinking about his parents in a time of great need. What a beautiful thing. And the way that you showed up in a miraculous way that it enabled him to continue to have life. So we just don't want to take that for granted or miss how significant that is. So we thank you for that. We pray for those for whom maybe the miracle that they had wanted didn't come the way that they had hoped, that somehow you would still rise up and that you would still be blessing them, that hope of eternity, and also that hope of today, here and now, that you can heal and do amazing things, sometimes in ways beyond what we can even anticipate is possible. So keep us open to you and to this miraculous activity of you in the world today. And thank you so much again for this gift of life, which itself is a miracle. Thank you for each other and for the people who we get to share our life with. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Bob, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Could I add one thing? We sometimes pray for things to happen, but I didn't pray for that to happen. It just happened.
Yeah.
So I trust it. like I said, I expected to not be here today.
Mm-hmm.
He works in his own way.
Mm.
And we just have to trust that the way our lives work out are for his glory.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Bob. Thanks
You're
so
welcome.
much. And everyone, thank you for joining us on the Good News podcast today. Always good to be with you. Hope you were inspired and encouraged by this incredible story. God bless you and be with you, and hope to see you again soon. Wow, friends, I told you, man, at the beginning in the introduction that this was a riveting story. It's still hard to even fathom what Bob went through. And yet I could imagine, I could almost see this moment in time where his life was before his very eyes. And I love that in that moment he actually thought of his parents and thought of others. How inspiring is that? And then wow, like he said, there was something happened, this miraculous activity where he was all of a sudden free and up against that fence. I can only imagine in that moment the gratitude for his life. And I know I haven't experienced something so dramatic as that, and maybe you haven't either, but maybe part of the message for us today is to simply be grateful for our life and how precious all of our lives are and how quickly things can change. So may we just be grateful today for Bob, for this story, but also for our own lives. And maybe this story has opened us up a little bit more to God's miraculous activity in the world, just to be more aware of that and awakened to that and looking out for that even perhaps. So friends, thanks so much for being a part of this Good News podcast family. And don't forget to follow us on Good News with Jamie Holtum on Instagram. Hope to see you again soon. Until then, God bless you.